Hello, everyone. This is Sister Crystal here with Let's Talk Classic Hip Hop. And as you can see from the title, today's topic is Juneteenth, a brief history. However, before I get into Juneteenth, I must touch on some of the events that brought about Juneteenth. Okay, so the year 1619 is reported as the year the first ships from the African continent were brought here to North America, which was at the time part of the British colony. So Great Britain actually owned part of what we know of today as the Northern United States of America. So the first slaves were brought here to Jamestown, Virginia in 1619. Okay, so we're going to fast forward to the year 1863, and that is the year that President Abraham Lincoln signed a document called the Emancipation Proclamation. He signed it into law on January 1st, 1863. And what that did is it ended chattel slavery. So chattel slavery is the slavery that we know where other people own other people, put them to work for their gain, and the people were badly treated, and they were treated like property instead of people. Okay. So now we go from 1863 to 1865. That's 2 years. So, actually they're saying 2.5 years. So that's how long it took for the word to spread all the way to Texas in the United States of America, to the slaves that were in the state of Texas, to let them know that slavery as they known it had ended 2 years prior. The reason for Juneteenth is because it's reported that sometime in June, they're saying June 19th, 1865, is when the slaves in Texas finally received word that slavery as they known it was over, and they were free. They were free to go. So that's where Juneteenth comes from. It's even though the Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1863, it took nearly 2.5 years before the word got to everyone. And part of that is because of the efforts of the slave owners and people that were in power, keeping the word from the masses of people and letting them know that slavery, chattel slavery, had ended. So in 1865, many of the slaves, when they learned that chattel slavery had ended, many of them, they were happy. They just went on. And what happened with that is, okay, so imagine you're working somewhere forever, you're not getting paid, but it's your way of life. And well, no, let me rephrase that. Imagine you are working somewhere, it's not the best pay or whatever, but it's something. And then you have your supervisor or the CEO or what have you come to you and say, hey, guess what? You're free. I guess they'll say, well, you're fired, but you're free. And maybe it's a job that you hate. So they freed you from your crappy job with low wages. But the problem is you don't have anything else. You don't know of anything else. And so either you, depending on your mindset, either you're happy like, hey, I'm free, and this was the swift kick in the butt that I needed to move on and do something for myself, or oh, well, what am I going to do from here? So I don't know if I did a great analogy on that, but having said that, so the issue was, yes, these former slaves were free. However, all they had was the clothes on their back. They didn't have anything, no money, no clothes other than what they had on their back, no jewels, nothing. It's just like, hey, you N-words, you're free, you know. And a lot of them were like, hey, we're out of here. But some were like, well, okay, what are we going to do now? What does this newfound freedom mean for us? But eventually they got over it and was able to do well for themselves for a little bit. We had the okay, I don't want to go off too far off track. So Juneteenth, they learned that they were free and they were able to go out and make their own lives. And it was rough because they were left with nothing. And shortly after that, that's when you had the Jim Crow laws, and then you had all these different laws put into place to kind of keep these former slaves in their place, so to speak. So I know I'm kind of going off on something else, but I made this because I wanted to do something for Juneteenth, and then I can come back and kind of do something else in addition to this. But I don't know. I just think me personally, I'm just now learning about Juneteenth over the past several years. So this is new for me too. So I just wanted to put something out there to kind of commemorate it. But I do want to show some images from slavery. It was rough. So when you hear some people talk about slavery, they talk about it as if it wasn't that bad. But it was horrific. The punishments they endured, slaves that tried to run, because there were many attempts for the slaves to try to run and gain their freedom on their own. And if they were caught, their limbs were cut off. They had different little chains and different things that would be put on their necks if they were caught and brought back. And the worst part was just death, like a slow death by lynching, and women's babies were cut from their pregnant bellies as a warning for other people to not try to run away. So I said all that to say, Juneteenth, it's important to know about Juneteenth, and it's not just for people of Black or African American descent, but it's for everyone. Juneteenth is America's history, and as you know, we have something called the 4th of July, but the significance with Juneteenth is the 4th of July. That's when the United States gained its independence from Great Britain, from being a colony of Great Britain to having their own independence. And that was in 1776. However, in 1776, many of our ancestors, my ancestors, were still enslaved. So while on the 4th of July every year we celebrate what they call Independence Day, at the same time there were many human beings that were being treated inhumanely, that were treated as property, that were treated less than human. And that's the significance of Juneteenth, because while we're celebrating the 4th of July, on one hand, there are people that didn't have their independence. They even came up with a slogan, I think it says, "Give me liberty or give me death." Well, that was already happening with a lot of the slaves that they brought here. A lot of them endured the conditions of slavery, and a lot of them was like, I'm going to escape. I'm going to run. I'm going to do what I can. I don't care if I get caught and I'm killed. I'd rather die than to live in the conditions that I'm having to live. So, but yeah, so I know it's not perfect, but I hope that this will inspire other people to kind of look up Juneteenth and kind of learn what it's about. I know it's inspired me. I'm inspired. I am not recording this over. This is actually the 10th time I recorded this. I really was trying to get this right. But yeah, just check it out. Juneteenth. It's June 19th of every year. And there are a lot of cities around the country that celebrate Juneteenth, including Cincinnati, where I'm from. We have a celebration. We honor Juneteenth with over the weekend. Where people have vendors, you have music, and you have stories that young people and adults alike partake in. I know I believe it's at least 20 different cities around the United States that partake in Juneteenth. And actually this past weekend, they had a Juneteenth celebration here in Cincinnati with vendors and different performers and all that. I mean, they had some great performers too. I know one year, and this year was the 31st annual Juneteenth celebration here in Cincinnati, Ohio. I don't know the other cities, but there are some other cities that also do it. But they have some great entertainers that come. I know one year the Rick James Stone City Band, they performed. And they have so many great performers. It's not all just conscious singers and rappers, but just great music, just to come together to celebrate the true emancipation and freedom of our ancestors, our African descendants from Africa, that their freedom from the horrors of chattel slavery here in this country, in the United States of America. And one more thing I wanted to point out: just because we acknowledge Juneteenth does not mean we are giving a slap in the face to the 4th of July. All of this is America's history. And until America is honest with herself, hisself, itself about America's history, because Juneteenth is American history. Don't get it twisted. Don't let someone tell you that Juneteenth is for you. I feel bad because it seemed like even after all these years, it's not, for some reason, the word of Juneteenth is not out there. And then when you hear about it, it's only certain people that even acknowledge it. But until, I really would like to see Juneteenth as big, or if not bigger than 4th of July. We have our get-togethers and we barbecue and all that kind of stuff. And that was the emancipation, or not emancipation, but the independence of America from British rule. Is just as important that Juneteenth, that the ending of chattel slavery, that's just as important too. So I am starting to ramble, but I'm starting to find myself getting a little emotional. I do want to finish this and have this up in time. So thanks for listening. This has been Sister Crystal with Let's Talk Classic Hip Hop, and it's part 1 of 2. I'm going to come back with a part 2 of Juneteenth, A Brief History. So also like, comment, subscribe, give feedback. I'm open for feedback as long as it's respectful, you know. You don't have to love everything I do, but just, you know, respectful feedback is also welcome. It's always welcome. So thank you for your time and have a great day. Enjoy. Happy Juneteenth, everyone.